if there is one kind of magic that will never go out of fashion, this is love magic. People will always need and want to be loved. And in the Balkans, they know exactly what to do about it. Here, love magic is still very much practiced, even when it's morally ambiguous or dangerous. But a little bit of danger has its own appeal, hasn't it? Nowadays, love magic is oftentimes treated as some kind of embarrassing cousin of real witchcraft. And the discussions about its moral ambiguity or whether we should do love magic at all are endless. Today, I won't be doing any moral judgment. I will just try and explain how love magic was viewed and is still viewed in the Balkans as we speak. In the past, there were three layers of practicing love magic, which were important and were very much present in the everyday life of people. The first one would be something that we can call the outermost layer, and this would be love magic that was tied into or was part of collective celebrations, part of the festive calendar. Examples for those would be fire jumping on specific days that was meant to bring people together, to bless their union, etc., etc. Other ones would be rolling in the dew or gathering it, as we previously discussed about the day of Saint George. A very popular method of predicting your future husband, which is also a kind of love magic, is the singing over of rings, which we'll probably discuss in the future if you have interest about it. And we can go on and on. The second layer is the layer that is connected with the life transitions. So you have love magic embedded in rites of passage, which are life transitions. So you have different practices that are tied to the rites of passages for the girls, especially for the girls, but also you have them in the practices for the boys. And I have to stop here and open a little bracket. So, to explain what was the meaning of love magic. And this is something that nowadays we perceive as a luxury, So, like I can attract anyone I want, I can do whatever I want, and I can leave them and on to the other and on to the next, and so on for some individual reasons. But in the past, the love magic was not only for this personal satisfaction, but also served as a way to acquire life partner, which was a requirement in order to be accepted in the community, and which was needed in order to produce offspring, which was central to human culture for millennium. No, yes, millenniums, actually, yes. And this was central not because somebody was conditioned or something, but because it is central to any living being, procreation and carrying forward your family, your genes, your legacy, so to speak. So it is absolutely normal that we find blessings or traditions or spells even embedded in life transition rites of passage. For instance, you could put certain things in the water of your baby so that you make their chance of finding a decent spouse better. A decent spouse being a good love object in a way. And to circle back to our first order, so you have the collective celebrations, you have the personal life transitions, and of course, you have this third most inner level, the personal level. So, the individual practice of humans that some of them actually thought just like we do today. In the past, securing a good lover, respectively. Again, this word I cannot seem to remember it. Uh, a good lover would mean a good husband or a good wife, and would mean also prestige. And it was not so much for following your heart, but it was oftentimes an investment in your future. So you would go after the rich kid in town or the one that is very has good reputation and so on and so on. Three are the individuals that did love magic most of the time, that still do most of the magic most of the time, and those are, of course, witches, maidens who wish to secure a specific partner, and mothers in law that are not happy with the choice of their child. And this leads us to the next category separation that I really have to emphasize. In the Balkans, love magic is attractive magic, but also separation magic. So I'll be talking about both types of these practices. And if we have to be more thorough, we should include attracting, binding, keeping, dissolving, so breaking of spells, and banishing a person that you're not interested in or you don't want them to be in your love life, like the mistress of your husband, for instance. So, this is very vital differentiation to make because I have the feeling that nowadays, people perceive love magic only as the attraction type of love magic, and I blame movies for this, and books, books, books too. But in reality, a lot of times it was to get rid of someone, to make space in a way. And as I said, I won't be making moral judgments here, just sharing the facts. We just can't speak about love magic in the Balkans without mentioning the famous curse tablets. The curse tablets are not necessarily curses always. Most of them are bindings or are prayers or are calling to Chthonic forces in order to make one's will true. Generally, the ones that reach us through the archaeological record are made from lead, but it is believed that there existed such that were from wax or other materials that are not so well preserved uh, in the ground. They're specific with the fact that they are, once they're made, they're not kept by the person and are not disposed of near a person that's the target, but are rather deposited in within wells most of the time, or within some other water resource like springs, for instance, and can be also placed in graves too. And this defines the recipient of these prayers, banishings, bindings, and etc. And those are the chthonic forces, and most notably some gods and goddesses connected with the chthonic world. And those would be, of course, Hades, Persephone, but also the god Hermes and the goddess Hecate. And they worked in this way that they carried the will of the person who was making them or who had purchased their creation to a professional to those chthonic forces so they can act upon them. And it's very interesting because it is estimated that roughly one fourth of all the curse tablets that have been found during archaeological excavations or any kind of archaeological work are actually, as scholars call them, referring to matters of the heart. And we can separate those in two other types, and those would be trying to uh, provoke affection, and the other one would be trying to get laid, to put it simply. So they were driven by desire and not by love. And some scholars have made the observation that the first type, attracting affection, was predominantly made by women, and the other was predominantly made by men. And nobody is surprised. We know this because oftentimes the text of the curse tablets included the names of both parties and sometimes the names of other people that are somehow involved. The sole point of the curse tablets was to get you the spouse or the lover that you wanted and needed. And if this sounds familiar, it should, because the logic doesn't change throughout the centuries, it stays the same. And if we look forward, we'll see the same things unravel. We will see attraction magic. We want to attract a good person for us, regardless what good means to us. We have this acceptable by the community practice of wanting to find a partner. And it's acceptable by the community because this is how the community thrives, with procreation. And you can't have procreation without having partners or love. So, attraction magic is something that's generally thought to be something good. In many cases, you would have spells that attract generally love to you. And I find that this is something, although I said that I won't be judging morally, but my personal opinion is that making a spell or a rite for attracting love generally without mentioning a specific person is a practice that still has place in our times. And this is the place where it becomes morally ambiguous, is when you try to name a specific person and you try to control them. And I have met people that are doing this nowadays. I had an acquaintance who used to regularly pay a professional witch to enchant their partner. And until she did so, they were with her. And at some point, she stopped doing this and things fell apart. So this relationship lasted for a lot of years. And in the end, this woman wasted all this time to of with someone who actually didn't want to be with her. So I urge you to think whether this moral ambiguity is a price you are willing to pay, because oftentimes it's not. And I'm back to not judging morally. This example also shows that when we speak about love magic in the Balkans, we don't speak of something that's gone, you know. This is something that is quite popular here, and almost everyone has, in one point or another in their lives, engaged in some sort of a love magic, whether that would be lighting a candle, participating in some kind of superstition about finding a husband, or a full-blown ritual. That's something that's quite on the table here in the Balkans. A lot of the things are communal celebrations that are you are taught by from elders, you know. In the societies that formed after the medieval period, in the period that I call traditional culture, which is has a different name across the Balkans, but generally speaking, the period between like 17th and 19th century, which bled through 20th century as well. Love magic was, as practiced by the witches in the communities, was something that aimed finding a good partner. And I think that we already established why people do love magic, but let's focus on the how. And we have a lot of methods here that are used for bringing this influence to someone or in someone's life. And one of the most popular ones is the so-called washings. So washing with water that was infused with different kinds of herbs. And I was recently asked whether I can list some of them, and I have to tell you that listing the love herbs, and which are for attraction and separation from the Balkans, can be a whole book on its own. That being said, of course, we can name some of the herbs that are most prominent in love magic. One of those herbs actually is quite common, and this is thyme. This is a herb that's beloved across the Balkans. It's known by almost anyone, and it was a one that was used for magic. Basil is another herb that was used for attracting love in your life. In the past, young maidens used to have their own parts of the garden where they would grow different herbs that were specifically used for placing them in their hair or adorning themselves with those herbs. And a large part of those herbs were protective ones, but there were ones that were also attracting love. And basil was one of those herbs. Of course, there are many other herbs that are linked both to attracting and chasing away love. And as I said, they are very regionally specific. Moving on to the next way magic, love magic was acted out, it was a one way of uh, doing spells for gaining control over either individuals or groups of people, which was very popular for sure in the Central Balkans, but I guess it would be popular among the other parts of the Balkans as well. This was to look someone through something. And most of the time, this would be either a ring like this one. So looking someone through something would mean that you look through the circular object, and you see the person in some cases. Just that's enough. It can be accompanied by other words, some magic spell. But in some descriptions, we have that you would have to look the person from head to toe and back 3 times. So this would be looking through someone. And the ring thing is used a lot in love magic, and for this purpose, very popular to was very popular to use a ring from a dead person. I have already shared an example for this on my Patreon for tiers 1 and above. And this is a spell for love with a dead person's wedding ring. And it is part of my article that I got published in the Crows Collection anthology titled World Magic, which is out now. So if you don't have access to my Patreon, this is another place you can find it. It's a nice anthology of folk magic, so it's interesting. Another way in which love spells are carried out is through some form of material that is either linked to or even fed to the person of our desires. And of course, we have to acknowledge the fact that we are speaking from, for some of the time, for bodily fluids. And in the Balkans, I get the feeling that menstrual blood is the most common one. And it's not only used for attracting desired partners, but also for keeping an already acquired partner uh, faithful and in love. And this is done through placing a couple of drops, most of the times 3 drops, not like great quantities, in their food. I have to say this is disgusting, and I think that you can do whatever you want with your own bodily fluids, but you should not feed them to other people or endanger other people by getting them in contact with your bodily fluids without their consent. And if you think that menstrual blood or other bodily fluids are disgusting, by the way, you have to know that this is also done with different material. For instance, like stork poo has also been fed to people. And another thing that was also used was a bat. I think that this also was something believed in other places, but the ability of a bat to stick to surfaces, to hang to surfaces, sometimes upside down, was believed to be able to be transferred in love matters. And so there were times when parts of bats that were ritually, sometimes ritually slaughtered, were also fed to people or were carried in one's purse or were carried on even on their own selves. So in the way that the bat sticks to things, people would stick to you. Some practitioners would argue that it was not a bat that was used, but rather a plant that was called with the name of that was called bat, uh, generally speaking. So this is also true. All the plants that are sticky, and I'm sure that you know such plants, can be used in the exact same way. So you don't rush killing bats, please. Bats are oftentimes endangered species, so let them be. They are quite important for our environment. And of course, other than that, you have many other practices that are aimed to acquiring your loved person, but or separating them from you. But as I said, there are so many practices, so many things, and I merely hope that I manage to bring some light into the practices of our region. Now, it has to be said that nowadays, most of those practices, just like they were in the past, were and are frowned upon. So, most of them are done in secret. And this comes again to this idea that controlling another human being is not a good thing to do. But love magic has survived everything: Christianization, modernity, and even the internet. Nowadays, the witches and magicians who do love magic advertise their spells on the internet. And this is because the need those things are satisfying has never changed. It will never change. Balkan witchcraft doesn't pretend that this need is simple or that desire is necessarily pure. And I like to think that maybe this is one of the most honest things a witchcraft tradition can do. Not to moralize or to preach, but to offer solutions. As usual, this episode of Balkan Witchcraft Explained has an extended cut on my Patreon for tiers 1 and above. Personally, I like to think that you will never have to resort to love magic in order to be loved. Because frankly, I think, and as cliche as this may sound, I think that true love is the best magic there is. And if you have it, all you need to do is keep the magic alive.